I canceled a $140 million deal with one thumb, while she was giggling over creme brulee with the man she was screwing. That's how this started. Not with yelling. Not with a dramatic discovery. Just that photo. She sent it like it was nothing. A text. A damn photo. No warning. No hesitation. Just another boring work night. Hashtag client dinner. With her face half pouting, half smirking across a wine glass. I didn't even need to zoom in to recognize the guy next to her. Mitchell Raines, junior partner. She used to complain about how much he stank of cologne and desperation. And the restaurant? That was the real punchline. La Noche. Downtown. Hidden booths. Low lighting. No photos on the website. It's not a place you bring clients. You bring affairs. You bring secrets. You bring your married boss's wife if you're bold, or just dumb enough. I had taken Natalie there 2 years ago. Our anniversary. I still remembered how she joked about the movie lighting and asked the waiter if they could dim it even more so we can pretend we're someone else. Apparently, she took that suggestion seriously. I didn't text back right away. Just stared at the photo for a long, cold minute. Let it burn into my memory. Her face. His smirk. That wine. Then, calmly, without twitching a muscle, I unlocked my phone, opened the email draft to Sterling's board of directors, and moved a pre-written message from drafts to send. Yes, pre-written. You see, I didn't trust my marriage anymore. Not since last August. That was the first time I noticed the dry clean-only blazer tossed carelessly in our laundry bin, stained with lipstick that wasn't hers. But I waited. I listened. I watched. And I built escape hatches. Just in case. Because Natalie wasn't just my wife. She was a senior associate at Marlowe Strategy Group. And the Sterling J. Bridge merger? It was going through her firm. Through her department. Through her hands. And mine. So I wrote the email weeks ago, outlining emerging reputational concerns involving key advisory personnel that would give my firm the legal cover to pull out. Just in case she ever made it obvious. Just in case she got careless. Tonight, she did. I typed one line beneath her photo and hit send. Looks nice. Hope it was worth the Sterling merger I just canceled. Your corporate card is now declined. And that was it. That's all it took. She had no idea that the card she was using, the one she thought was just a sweet perk from our shared business expenses, was linked directly to a discretionary spending account I controlled. No idea that the reservation she used was flagged in a loyalty program I helped design for that same restaurant group. No idea that I'd spoken to the maitre d' earlier this week about reserving the same booth for an upcoming board dinner, and been told, actually, it's already taken for Friday. Name's Raines. Mitchell Raines. I guess he likes to recycle romance. Natalie thought she was clever. That she could dress it up in hashtags and candlelight and pass it off as just another boring client dinner. But you don't wear a backless dress to negotiate quarterly projections. You don't toast your client with vintage Bordeaux and touch his wrist when you laugh unless something's already been signed, just not on paper. So I didn't scream. Didn't send follow-up messages. Didn't even wait for her response. I just sat there in my den, with the fire low and the sound of ice settling in my glass, and smiled. A quiet smile. The kind that knows things are already in motion. That everything she built, from the fake texts to the secret dinners to the whispered lies at work, is about to crack, one thread at a time. Oh, and if you're still listening at this point, do me one favor. Subscribe. More than 90% of you never do, and honestly, it's the one thing that actually motivates the team to keep digging up stories like this. Yeah, stories about lies, power, and people who think they'll never get caught. But back to Natalie. The best part? She still hasn't checked her corporate email. Not yet. She still thinks she's the clever one in the room. And in a way, that's the most satisfying part of all. Watching someone play pretend, not knowing they're already standing in the wreckage. She called me an hour later, still floating on whatever fantasy world she thought she was in. Her voice was syrupy, overly casual, the kind of tone she used when she was hiding something behind her teeth. Hey babe, she chirped, background noise filtering through. Glasses clinking, low jazz music, distant laughter, one male voice way too close. Just wrapping up here. Late night. You know how these things go. I said I know, and hung up. No inflection. No pause. Just 3 words and dead air. Because what she didn't know, what she'd never imagined, is that I was already halfway through the second email. Not the first. That one had already gone out, the instant her picture arrived. The second was to Sterling's risk committee, outlining precisely why we'd be terminating all facilitation efforts related to the merger. I didn't need drama. Just a clean extraction. I cited emerging reputational exposure through key intermediaries, flagged confidential attachments for internal-only review, and noted I'd be available for a confidential call first thing Monday. And her card? The one she thought was her business perk, the one she was swiping for $62 scallops and a $300 bottle of red. Yeah, that card was issued through my firm's discretionary client engagement budget. She only had it because I'd once pulled strings to get her access, during the early days, when we were still pretending we were on the same side. Back then, I thought I was helping her grow. Turned out I was just giving her tools to dig her own grave. I opened my firm's internal dashboard and manually revoked the card's privileges. Then sat back and watched as it turned from green to red. Disabled. Instant. Meanwhile, her dessert was probably arriving. Something French. Something delicate. She had a weakness for those airy little plates where the sugar costs more than the flour. Probably leaned across the table and asked Mitchell to guess what she was wearing underneath. Probably laughed when he guessed wrong. I imagined her smile fading in real time, just slightly, when she looked at her phone and saw I hadn't replied. Not to the photo. Not to the call. Not even a thumbs up. Let her wonder. While she was busy savoring mascarpone, I was finalizing the third domino, legal review. The thing about corporate mergers is that they don't fall apart because of one scandal. They unravel through patterns, through hints of liability, through people like me quietly raising concerns with phrases like potential conflict of interest and lack of appropriate disclosure. And Natalie? She'd just tied herself to a walking HR violation with a reputation for sleeping his way sideways through partnerships. Mitchell Raines wasn't just bad press. He was a documented risk. I knew that because one of my firm's analysts flagged his name 6 months ago in a routine sweep. Multiple quiet settlements. Nothing criminal. Just enough NDAs to choke a shredder. And now? Now Natalie was on record, publicly, tagging him as her dinner date under the guise of a client. That photo wasn't just marital betrayal. It was admissible evidence of corporate misconduct. By the time she got home, she'd have no idea what kind of quiet storm she'd already triggered. The silence from me wouldn't feel like distance. It would feel like strategy, because that's what it was. I didn't yell. I didn't question. I built a paper trail. Every step she took deeper into that affair, she wrapped herself tighter in liability. And the beauty of it? She still thought I was in the dark. She still thought I'd be waiting up in bed, maybe angry, maybe hurt, but definitely passive. No, Natalie. I wasn't waiting up. I was already packing the exit parachute and lighting the building on fire on my way out. I was in the office by 7:10 the next morning. Not because I couldn't sleep. Sleep wasn't the issue. I slept fine, like a man who'd already set the chessboard and was now watching the other player fumble the pieces. My assistant raised an eyebrow when she saw me. I just nodded. Compliance. Now, 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from 2 attorneys and our VP of risk. I didn't pace. I didn't sigh dramatically or try to look like a wounded husband. That wasn't the point. This wasn't personal anymore. This was procedural. I placed a printed copy of the photo on the table. The one Natalie had sent me like it was some flirty little joke. Her half-smile. The wine. Mitchell's hand suspiciously close to hers. That goddamn candle between them like a witness. No caption needed. I followed it with a timeline, clearly marked, color-coded. When she accessed the corporate card. When the reservation was made. When her phone location pinged downtown, not at the client office she claimed to be attending. And then, almost as an afterthought, I slid over Mitchell's file. Because yes, we had one. Everyone did. Mitchell Raines. The name made the room shift. Subtle, like a pressure change before a storm. The VP of risk let out a single hum. One of the lawyers tilted her head, flipping through the sheets. No gasps. No disbelief. Just quiet confirmation. They knew. Not the details, but the pattern. Mitchell's reputation preceded him. Rumors of boundary pushing with clients. Inappropriate comments logged by juniors. That subtle, creeping liability that never quite made it to lawsuits, but always made it to the back channels of every firm he passed through. I didn't have to argue. Didn't have to beg. They already saw the threat. My role was to make it undeniable. I explained my decision to pull the merger. That it wasn't revenge, it was risk mitigation. That Sterling's board needed to be protected from a potential scandal involving undisclosed relationships and compromised negotiations. Compliance nodded. They'd seen worse. But this was clean, contained, preventable. By 10:45 a.m., legal had flagged the Sterling Jaybridge merger as compromised. Not canceled, yet, but under internal review. Soft freeze, they called it. Like a pause button with a razor underneath. It meant all communications halted. All integrations stopped. All access locked down until pending evaluation of reputational exposure tied to advisory personnel. Translation: Natalie and Mitchell just became the two heaviest weights on a deal that used to fly. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed. Natalie, miss you already, Blackheart. 2 minutes later. Lunch today. A photo of her coffee, artfully posed next to a scone and an open laptop, pretending to work while trying to look effortlessly innocent. She had no clue. No clue. She was still playing the role, the doting wife, the busy professional, the woman juggling both worlds like some Instagram-powered goddess of balance. What she didn't see was that the floor beneath her was already gone. Every sweet nothing she sent felt more absurd than the last. Like watching someone sing karaoke while the bar burns down behind them. I didn't reply, not because I was hurt, because I was done replying to fantasies. Every time she typed another cutesy message, another hearts and smiles emoji, it just hardened the resolve in my gut. She wasn't just betraying me. She was insulting my intelligence. And worse, she was risking the integrity of my name, my firm, my work. By noon, the board had been notified. Quietly. No alarms. No press. But they all knew. Natalie and Mitchell weren't names on a spreadsheet anymore. They were liabilities. And I was the man who caught them before they poisoned a $140 million transaction. She thought she was ahead of the game. But while she posed for brunch selfies, I was already moving pawns, bishops, and rooks behind the curtain. Let her play pretend. I was building walls she wouldn't even see until her face hit the brick. The cancellation wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. At 8:17 a.m. the next morning, my firm's managing counsel hit send on a single, clinical email to the Sterling board. In light of recent due diligence findings and the resulting concerns surrounding the conduct of key personnel, we are formally withdrawing our interest in the Sterling Jaybridge merger. We thank the board for their time and cooperation. No drama, no specifics, just enough legal ambiguity to make every recipient sit up straighter and start asking, who? By noon, the statement was echoed in a public press memo, buried 5 paragraphs down in a digest of market activity. Citing internal review concerns, Langwell Partners has formally exited merger facilitation with Sterling Equity. No further comment. And just like that, the future of Sterling's biggest deal in 2 decades was ash on the floor. I didn't speak at the follow-up. I didn't need to. That's what managing counsel is for: distance, precision, and plausible deniability. I just watched the ripples. See, a deal like this doesn't implode all at once. It stutters. It bleeds. Quietly, then violently. First come the whispers, then the missed calls, then the meetings that get rescheduled until they never come back. By 3 p.m., Sterling's partners were scrambling. By 5 p.m., Mitchell Raines got the call. It wasn't from legal. Not at first. It was his boss. A man whose voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It came through low, sharp, and just this side of nuclear. You just cost us $140 million. Start talking. Mitchell, for all his smugness, didn't know what to say. I know because the call was overheard. One of those open-floor offices with zero privacy and glass everywhere. Rumor spreads fast in places like that. And apparently, Mitchell didn't handle pressure well. Stammering. I didn't know. No, she said it was cleared. I didn't think. He didn't think. Natalie had that effect on people. Made them think rules were optional if you played her game right. The problem is, corporate isn't built for games. It's built for structure, for responsibility, for risk management. And suddenly, Mitchell was the walking definition of risk. Meanwhile, Natalie, still clueless, still sending texts like nothing had changed. Hey babe, dinner later? Spaghetti, I'll be home early tonight, face blowing a kiss. I didn't respond. She wasn't coming home to dinner. Not tonight. Not again. Because I knew what she didn't. That her own internal review was about to begin. That HR already had a copy of that photo. That Mitchell had panicked during the call and, according to someone 2 degrees removed, already thrown her under the bus. She said it was just a dinner. I didn't know the card was tied to the firm. She said her husband was cool with it. Her husband? Cool with it. Heh. I was many things. Cool wasn't one of them. I was calculating. I was deliberate. I was already signing the formal closure packet that would trigger the reallocation of our M&A resources to the Brighton Trask acquisition instead. A quieter deal. Less media. No baggage. I didn't destroy Natalie's career. She did that all by herself. All I did was step out of the way and let gravity handle the fall. And fall it did. Natalie's day started like it always did, entitled, curated, and blissfully disconnected from reality. Late brunch with her coworkers, all smiles and half-truths. A quick selfie from the terrace of that overpriced place on 3rd, captioned something vapid like, "Grind now. Glam later." Briefcase sparkles. A lie so thin it should have embarrassed her, but didn't. Then, a detour to her favorite boutique on 6th, where she was planning to treat herself for surviving another grueling week of doing the bare minimum while pretending she was running the show. A bag caught her eye. Italian leather. Hand-stitched. One of those things that screams, "I matter," to people too insecure to say it out loud. She sauntered to the counter, flashed her best, "I'm married to money" smile, and handed over the black Amity corporate card with the silver stripe. The one she used for client development, even though the only thing she developed with it lately was her ego. The saleswoman slid it through. Declined. Natalie tilted her head like a confused cat. "Try again." She did. Declined. Natalie forced a laugh. Too sharp, too performative. "Weird. Must be the machine. Try manual entry." The woman tried. Declined again. This time, the laugh didn't come. Natalie fished out her phone and called me, irritated already, like this inconvenience was beneath her. "Hey, weird issue with the Amity card. Keeps declining. Did something happen?" I was in my office, reviewing the Brighton deal. I didn't sigh. I didn't pause. I didn't even smile. I just said, "Yes," and hung up. Nothing else. Just a flat truth. No explanation. No comfort. No escape. She stood there, phone still in hand, lips parted like she was waiting for more. Like I owed her a damn thing. The saleswoman was polite, offered to hold the bag for her, pretend the moment hadn't just publicly cracked her designer mask. Natalie nodded stiffly, then turned and walked out, heat rising to her face in a way she hadn't felt since high school. In the car, she opened her work email. Subject, urgent, compliance request. Sender, internal risk oversight, Marlowe Strategy Group. Flagged, high priority. She blinked. The preview line said it all. Please be advised your client engagement record has triggered a conflict of interest review in light of recent submissions. You are required to attend a formal inquiry. She didn't even finish reading. Her hands started to sweat. Heart beat thudding now, not from fear, exactly, but from that slow realization that something shifted. It's like walking through your house and suddenly realizing the walls aren't where they were this morning. The familiar things, routine, access, power, had all rearranged themselves. And she didn't know the blueprint anymore. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Mitchell. "We need to talk." 3 words. No emojis this time. No winks. Just dread. Natalie opened the group chat with her 2 work friends, sent a casual message, trying to steady the waters. "Anyone else get a weird compliance thing today?" No reply. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Nothing. Her reflection in the car window looked unfamiliar now. Pale. Off-center. Like someone playing dress-up in a role they no longer owned. She stared at the screen for a long minute. And for the first time, maybe ever, she started to get it. Something had gone very, very wrong. And no amount of charm, cleavage, or curated captions was going to undo what was already in motion. Monday morning, Natalie dressed carefully. Nothing flashy. Nothing risque. Conservative blazer over her usual silk blouse. Minimal jewelry. Barely their makeup. The kind of outfit you wear when you're trying to appear professional without looking like you're trying too hard. She'd woken up early, stomach tight with a sensation she didn't recognize as fear. Not yet. She told herself it was stress. Work. The usual. But she'd checked her phone 6 times between brushing her teeth and backing out of the driveway. No new messages from Mark. Nothing from Mitchell since "we need to talk." The compliance email still sat in her inbox, unread, blinking like a live grenade. When she arrived at the office, the receptionist didn't meet her eyes, just handed her a plain manila envelope. HR meeting. 9:30, conference room B. No smile. No explanation. Natalie climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator. She told herself she needed the exercise. Truth was, her palms were sweating and she didn't want anyone to see her reflection shaking in the elevator's chrome. Conference room B had its blinds closed. Always a bad sign. Inside, Dana from HR, neutral to the point of robotic. Beside her, Harold Chon, the firm's managing partner for North American accounts, and Susan Bell, head of internal compliance. Heavy hitters, not just box checkers. Natalie hesitated. "Please, have a seat," Dana said, not unkindly. Natalie sat. The door clicked closed behind her. No one asked if she wanted coffee. On the table, a stack of paper. Not thick, but intentional. Controlled. Dana slid it across. The top page was her own photo, the one she'd sent Mark. Her, smiling across wine, backlit by a candle. Another boring work night. Caption visible in the cropped screenshot. Beneath it, Mark's reply. Looks nice. Hope it was worth the Sterling merger I just canceled. Your corporate card is now declined. Natalie didn't breathe. She flipped the page with trembling fingers. The next one showed a compliance log, timestamps from her card use. Then a digital receipt from La Noche. Then an internal flag attached to her account dated 3 days prior. Another page. Mitchell's name, underlined in red. Dana cleared her throat softly. Natalie, we're reviewing a potential breach of the firm's non-fraternization clause, specifically regarding your use of firm assets for personal matters and the undisclosed relationship with Mr. Raines. Natalie opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It wasn't a relationship. It was just dinner. He's a colleague. I didn't think. Harold leaned forward. We have a record of the reservation made under your Amity card. It's a booth that typically requires executive-level clearance to reserve. You also listed it as a client meeting. Natalie's voice cracked. It was informal. I didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't romantic. Susan cut in, tone calm but razor sharp. We have statements from other employees suggesting otherwise. And internal systems flagged your social media post within 30 minutes of it going live. Natalie blinked fast. Wait. How did you even get this? Did he send all this? Dana didn't blink. He submitted a formal conflict of interest report, yes. He also forwarded relevant documentation and recused his firm from the Sterling deal, citing reputational risk. Natalie swallowed. Her mouth went dry. And others? She asked quietly. Dana nodded. Other materials. Other concerns. Natalie looked at the papers again. This time, they didn't look like documents. They looked like indictments. She thought she'd been in control. Thought she could juggle flirtation and plausible deniability like she always had. Mitchell had been a distraction. A thrill. She never thought it would matter. Never thought Mark, the quiet, composed husband, would actually do something about it. And certainly not like this. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He built a case. Around her, the room fell silent again. Harold finally spoke. This is an internal matter for now. But depending on how you respond in the next 24 hours, it may escalate. Natalie tried to steady her breathing, but the collapse had already begun. 32 minutes after Natalie left the meeting room, flushed, shaky, teeth gritted behind a mask of professionalism she could no longer maintain. Her so called me. Direct. No assistant. No calendar invite. He called my personal number. That alone told me everything I needed to know. I let it ring twice before answering. Mark, he said. Tight voice. Barely masking the panic. It's Adam. Adam Levingston. Pause. I wasn't aware that Natalie's situation had any connection to the Sterling deal. We had no idea. If I had, I cut him off. Not rudely. Just enough to clarify who was in charge of the conversation. I assumed you didn't. That's why I protected your firm by withdrawing quietly. Silence. You could hear him blinking through the phone. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the skyline outside my window, fingers steepled. I wasn't angry. Anger was small. Anger meant you still cared. What I felt was control. Adam cleared his throat. Look, I appreciate your discretion. Truly. We're obviously taking this seriously. I've already spoken with Mitchell's division head. He'll be placed on indefinite leave while we complete our review. I said nothing. But, he added quickly, if it helps restore your confidence in our firm, we're also prepared to accept Natalie's resignation. Immediately. I want to make this right, Mark. I almost laughed. Right? This wasn't a dent in a fender. This was a structural collapse of credibility, both his firm's and his own judgment. I took a long breath, not because I needed it, but because people like Adam interpret calm silence as power. And in this case, it was. I'm not interested in a resignation, I said finally. That would imply this is about revenge. Another silence. Nervous this time. It's not, he asked. No, I said. It's about standards. That landed like a slap. Adam stammered, of course. Yes, absolutely. We hold our people to the highest. I hung up. Clean. Cold. Absolute. He'd said enough. They always think it's personal. That I'm doing this because my pride was wounded or my heart was broken. What they never seem to understand is that pride fades. Hearts mend. But standards? Those are what separate people who merely survive from people who build empires. Natalie broke the marriage. Fine. People do. They lie. They cheat. They self-destruct. But she crossed the line when she brought that recklessness into a deal I spent 18 months constructing. When she used my own connections to fund a tryst with a junior associate who couldn't keep his zipper shut in a staff meeting. She thought this was chess. She thought she could flirt and maneuver and manipulate her way around consequences. But this wasn't chess. It was checkmate 6 moves ago, and only now did they all realize it. Adam would scramble. Natalie would spiral. Mitchell would fold. And me? I had a dinner meeting in 2 hours with the CEO of Brighton Trask and my general counsel. Quiet place. Same table I'd once reserved for anniversaries. Different company now. Different game. Same control. Natalie got home just after 8. She drove slower than usual, hoping traffic would stretch the silence. But it didn't. Every green light felt like a countdown. Every mile she closed toward our house, toward what used to be us, tightened the coil in her chest. She pulled into the driveway and noticed it immediately. The porch light was off. It was never off. She reached the door, pulled her keys from her purse with shaking hands, and tried the lock. Click. Stuck. She frowned, tried again. Nothing. Deadbolt changed. She stepped back, stared at the door like it had betrayed her. The house looked exactly the same, and yet it didn't feel familiar. Like someone had taken a photo of her life and erased her from it. After the 4th try, she stopped pretending it was a mistake. I watched from the upstairs window. Lights off. Silent. Just enough visibility to see her face shift, from confusion to frustration, and finally, to something she hadn't felt in years. Irrelevance. Eventually, she walked around to the back door. Same result. Locked. Alien. No key worked here anymore. After 5 full minutes of pacing the patio, she found the envelope. Not taped. Not shoved under the mat. Laid gently across the welcome bench. Her name written in my handwriting. Precise, small, unflinching. She stared at it for a long moment before picking it up and stepping back into her car, the cabin light above casting a sterile glow over her lap as she opened it. Inside, a manila folder. No dramatics. No rage. Just cold, organized dissolution. Property division agreement. Full separation of joint finances. Termination of all co-signed assets and shared accounts. Transfer of vehicle titles. List of updated legal contacts and a final line. All further communication will be through legal counsel. Her hands trembled. She flipped the last page, where I'd signed and dated everything already. No invitation to negotiate. No explanation. Just closure, sealed in procedure. And at the bottom, handwritten in the corner. P.S. You'll need a new firm to vouch for your next job. They saw everything. That line hit harder than any punch. Because in her world, image was everything. Reputation, access, appearances. And now, she couldn't even pretend. The firm that had once celebrated her sharp suits and curated brilliance now viewed her as a reputational hazard. A liability. An open tab on a night they'd never forget. She sat in the car for a while, engine off, fingers clenched around the folder like it might still warm up and rewind the clock. It wouldn't. I watched as she slumped forward, forehead against the wheel. This wasn't about a marriage ending. This wasn't a lover's quarrel or an affair gone sideways. This was a woman watching the scaffolding of her life fall in slow motion and realizing she was the one who kicked out the last support beam. The locks on the house were changed, but the doors she really cared about, those were already closed from the inside, and I didn't need to slam a single one. She'd done it all herself. 48 hours. That's all it took. Natalie's resignation letter was processed so quickly it might as well have been pre-written. Maybe it was. Maybe HR had one on standby, ready to drop her name into the template the moment I pulled the pin on the merger. The email went out late Wednesday morning. Effective immediately, Natalie R. has stepped down from her role at Marlowe Strategy Group. No flowers. No farewell lunch. No circulating card to sign with passive-aggressive good luck wishes. Just removed. By Thursday afternoon, her profile on the company website vanished. By Friday, her inbox auto-replied with "This account no longer exists." And by Monday, whispers had turned into mutterings, then meetings. The same people who clinked glasses with her at firm retreats now passed her name like a stain. Not publicly, not loudly, just enough for the next HR exec or hiring committee to ask the one question you can't undo. So what exactly happened over there? She updated her LinkedIn that night, cutting the title short, changing M&A senior strategist to a vague consulting executive. The kind of description that reeks of unfinished business. Then came the Instagram post. A photo of a beach. Generic. Probably stock. Captioned, "Taking time to focus on what really matters, waterwave sparkles." No one liked it. Well, 2 people did. A yoga instructor from Santa Fe and a guy she met at a fintech mixer 3 years ago. But no comments. No fire emojis from the usual girls she drank rose with. No, "You got this, babe," from her inner circle. Just silence. Digital silence is different. It's not a slap. It's not a scream. It's a vacuum. You post something designed to project strength, and the world shrugs. Scrolls past. Forgets. Even Mitchell was quieter than usual. Correction. Had to be. Because Mitchell Raines was fired the same day Natalie resigned. No headlines. No lawsuits. Just a one-line internal memo. Mr. Raines is no longer affiliated with Marlowe Strategy Group. We thank him for his service. The most surgical corporate execution money can buy. Word is, he tried to play victim in his exit interview. Threw Natalie under the bus like she had somehow seduced him into breaching policy. As if he hadn't been bragging about it after 2 whiskeys at the company retreat last fall. They both thought they were playing with pawns. Turns out, they were the pawns. Now Natalie's calls go unanswered. Recruiters ghost her mid-sentence. Her name doesn't even trend in the circles where she once strutted through cocktail events like she owned the air between clinks. She emailed a former client, a VC partner in Austin she once charmed into doubling a retainer, asking about new opportunities. No reply. She tried reaching out to an old colleague who'd moved to Dubai. Email bounced. Her influence wasn't just revoked. It was deleted. Professionally, she didn't just fall. She evaporated. And in a world that moves at the speed of reputation, there is no slower, more humiliating death than becoming forgettable. The final message came 7 days later. Not a call, not a voice note, just a text, sitting there on my screen like a ghost of a woman who used to move through rooms as if gravity bent around her. I'm sorry, I didn't think it would go this far. No punctuation at the end. Just like her, always leaving things open-ended, vague enough to reinterpret later. As if implication could pass for accountability. I stared at it for a moment. Let the silence stretch around me. Let the stillness sit like glass. Then typed 4 words. You never thought. That's the problem. Sent. Blocked. Not to punish. Not to make her chase. But because she didn't get to occupy space anymore. Not in my inbox. Not in my mind. I didn't need her apology. She hadn't burned the house down. She just proved she didn't belong in it. That evening, I returned to La Noche. Same restaurant. Same table. But this time, there was no anniversary. No staged smiles. No one performing trust while tucking a phone under the table. This time, it was business. My general counsel sat across from me, calm, focused. To my right, the CEO of Brighton Trask poured the same bottle of Pinot Noir Natalie once pretended to enjoy, but always secretly found too earthy. They toasted the future. I toasted restraint. No Instagram story. No photo of the wine glass. Just a quiet nod. A contract folder sliding across the table, and the click of pens on paper as a new merger took shape. One built on discipline, not deceit. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. A reminder that you don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to ruin someone publicly to remove them permanently. You just have to hold the line long enough for them to bury themselves. Then let the silence speak for you. As we stood to leave, I glanced back at the booth. The same booth. Same candle. Same wine. Different outcome. This time, the story ended with a signature, not a betrayal. And I walked out not as a man broken, but as one who rebuilt the rules, from the ground up, on his own damn terms.